My name is Jacob, I'm 28, and I live in Brooklyn. In this city, everything moves too fast, even emotions. You fall in love with someone on the subway, and a week later you're arguing about a like on Instagram. I always thought of myself as a calm person, until I met Emma. She was a designer at a startup in Manhattan. I met her at a friend's party. Her laugh was like music, loud, honest, the kind that makes you either fall in love or run away. I fell, of course. We started dating, and everything seemed perfect. She loved her coffee black. I needed 2 spoons of sugar. She woke up at 6, I at 9. Somehow, it worked. We even joked that our differences were what kept us together. But after a few months, I started noticing little things. She checked her phone more often, got messages at night, and smiled when she thought I wasn't looking. One time I asked, "Who's that?" She just said, "A coworker. We are working on a new project." I tried not to get jealous. But when you live in a city where half the people flirt just for sport, jealousy isn't just an emotion. It's self-defense. It all seemed harmless until I saw her Instagram story. She was at a bar with that same coworker. Maybe it was innocent. But when I texted her, "How's your night?" she replied, "At home. Cooking dinner." That was the first time I felt that cold inside. The kind that stays even years later. I didn't say anything that night. But that was the moment a crack appeared, one we both pretended not to see. And maybe that's when I started becoming someone I never wanted to be, a person who looks for proof instead of trust. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of her shower. The water was rushing, like it was trying to wash away the doubts from last night. Her phone buzzed beside me with a new message. The screen lit up, "Nate, work." A normal name. But my stomach twisted. I didn't open the message. I'm not that kind of guy. But something inside me cracked anyway. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself that it was all in my head. That I wasn't one of those guys who snoop through their girlfriend's phone, searching for proof of what they don't want to find. She came out of the shower, smiling, towel wrapped around her hair like nothing was wrong. "You're up early," she said. "Yeah, couldn't sleep. Dinner tonight?" My treat. Her voice was so sincere that for a moment, I believed everything was fine. We did go to dinner. A small restaurant in Manhattan, twinkling lights, a glass of wine. She laughed, told stories about work, and I sat there across from her, trying to catch even a flicker of deceit. But there was nothing. She was perfect. And that scared me more than anything. After dinner, she went to the bathroom. And before I even realized what I was doing, I picked up her phone. My heart was pounding like I'd committed a crime. Then I saw it, a few messages from Nate. "Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you. See you today." My breath stopped. Everything froze inside me. I didn't read further. I just put the phone back and pretended I hadn't seen a thing. She came out smiling, kissed my cheek. I smiled back. But inside, a storm was building. I knew I'd never look at her the same way again. That night, I couldn't sleep. New York buzzed outside, sirens, trains, shouting. She slept peacefully beside me, and I just stared into the darkness, wondering one thing: was it just flirting or something more? The next day, I acted like everything was fine. But now every move she made felt suspicious. When she smiled, I wondered, who for? When she stayed late at work, I heard only one name echoing in my head: Nate. A few days later, I went to the bar from her story. And guess what? The bartender recognized her. "Oh yeah, she comes here often," he said. "Always with that tall guy in the blue shirt. Cute couple." The ground disappeared beneath me. Cute couple. Those words cut deep. I went home ready to explode. But when I saw her cooking dinner, a different thought crossed my mind: revenge. No yelling, no accusations. Just a game. If she could lie, I could learn too. So I texted her, "Hey, I'll be late at work tonight. Don't wait up." It was my first lie. And, strangely enough, it felt easier than I ever imagined. I never thought of myself as someone who resorts to manipulation. But when jealousy stomps on trust, you do things you swore you'd never even hear about. My revenge. Started not with shouts or a scene. It started with small things that felt safe. First, I began publicly liking other girls. Photos on Instagram, not so blatantly to grab the whole city's attention, but just enough to appear in her story feed. I commented simple things. Nice. Love the lighting. Nothing crude. But when she noticed, her face changed. I could see a flicker of doubt cross her features, and that gave me a cold pleasure. I also started staying late at the gym. In reality, I sat at the cafe across the street and watched. Sometimes I'd pop into Brooklyn bars where creative people hang out. I drew attention, laughed at jokes, raised a glass with strangers. No one looked at me as a threat. But for me it was like training, to see if she'd notice, if she'd react. One evening I ran into her coworker, Nate, by chance? No, I don't believe in coincidences in this life. He was at a bar with friends, and I went over as if to exchange a greeting. Nate was easygoing, open. We talked about design, city life, old rock shows. He smiled, unaware there was an invisible game spinning between us. After that conversation, I felt a strange relief, like sunlight in a previously dark room. I thought it was the start of my victory. I had control. But control is an illusion. From that point, everything sped up faster than I could imagine. A few days later, I got a message from someone I didn't expect to hear from. Hey, saw you last night. You okay? It was from Mary, a girl I'd met at the cafe. I replied short and cold. Then our messages became a few harmless exchanges. I didn't want anything serious. I wanted to provoke a reaction in Emma. And she responded. Her voice changed when she asked, "Who's Mary?" I said she was just a friend. Again, a pebble tossed into water, making waves. That night, the apartment smelled of her favorite dish, lemon garlic shrimp. She stood at the stove with a soft smile, but her eyes were tight. We talked about trivia, which movie to watch, whether we'd make brunch on Saturday. And at one point she lost the thread and asked quietly, "Are you seeing someone?" I could have told the truth. No, it was a game. I was just giving back in kind. But instead I answered slyly, "No, just friends." Her shoulders dropped, but a new anxiety appeared in her eyes. We went to sleep on opposite sides of the bed, not fighting, not dramatic. Just that silent space that forms when two people no longer share the same map. I woke in the middle of the night to the sound of her crying, soft, barely audible. I lay there, and every drop of her tears felt like my own defeat. And at that moment I realized that my game was starting to hurt not just her, but myself too. The next few weeks turned into constant tension. We both wore masks, smiling, making breakfast, watching shows. But there was no air left between us. Every touch felt fake, every glance cautious. And worse, we both started believing our own lies. One day I came home earlier than usual. The apartment was quiet except for the soft music from her laptop. I opened the bedroom door and saw her sitting on the bed with her phone. The name on the screen, Nate. She didn't even notice me right away. "What are you doing?" I asked, trying to stay calm. She looked up, and I saw fear in her eyes. "Just texting," she said. "It's work." "Work again?" My voice sounded colder than I intended. She put the phone down, stood up, and looked me straight in the eyes. "Jacob, if you don't trust me, say it. And if you're cheating on me, say that." I shot back. Silence. Heavy, ringing silence. Then she sighed and said, "It's not what you think. We are just friends. He's helping me with a project." I smiled, not because I believed her, but because I didn't know what else to do. That night, I left. Just grabbed my jacket and walked out. The city buzzed, neon lights flickering, people laughing, and I wandered like a ghost. I stopped at a bar on the corner. It smelled of alcohol and cheap perfume. I sat at the counter and ordered whiskey. And then I saw Mary again. She recognized me instantly, sat down next to me, started talking. I listened, barely. She laughed, touched my hand, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't pull away. We talked for hours. She seemed simple, honest, without the "I'm busy" or "he's just a coworker" excuses. When I came home, it was past midnight. Emma was asleep, but her phone lit up on the nightstand. I couldn't help myself. I picked it up. A message from Nate. Can't stop thinking about you. You were amazing today. And her reply, please don't text me anymore. This isn't right. It hit me like a punch. She had tried to stop it. And I'd already crossed the line. I stood there, looking at her sleeping face, and felt ashamed. I had betrayed her worse than she'd betrayed me, because she at least hesitated. And I didn't. I played the dirty game I created. The next morning I made her coffee. She looked surprised but said nothing. We sat in silence, and I realized my pain wasn't jealousy anymore. It was because I had lost myself. So I decided I'd tell her everything. No drama, no blame. Just truth. But before I could speak, she said, I need to talk to you. Her voice trembled. And I knew there was something else coming, something I wasn't ready to hear. She stood in the kitchen like she was about to face a trial. Her hands trembled, her eyes red from sleeplessness. I said nothing, though my chest tightened with dread. Jacob, she began, I need to tell you the truth. She paused, took a breath, and for a moment it felt like a lifetime passed. There was something between me and Nate. My heart dropped, like it fell into a void. I repeated quietly. What exactly was? Just a kiss, she said, her voice breaking. One kiss. And right after, I stopped him. I told him it was wrong. But I knew, after that, nothing would be the same. I stood still, frozen. It wasn't anger that consumed me, but emptiness. She kept talking. I felt lonely. You were distant. I'm not excusing it. But her words blurred together. Inside me, two voices battled. One screamed, she betrayed you. The other whispered, and you? Are you any better? I watched her shoulders shake, her tears fall, and I suddenly realized she truly regretted it. Not because she got caught, but because she was hurt. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I asked. Because I was scared to lose you, she said softly. Maybe I already did. I sat down, staring at my mug of cold coffee. My mind painted scenes, her and Nate. That bar, her smile, his hand on her shoulder. I felt something heavy grow inside my chest. Not burning hatred, something quieter. The realization that we were both guilty. You know, I said after a long pause, I did something too. She looked up. What do you mean? There was a night. I met Mary. We talked. And I let myself go too far. Not physically, but emotionally, yeah. Her eyes filled with tears again, and this time she didn't look away. We sat there like two people left after a storm, surrounded by the debris of what used to be love. So what now? She asked softly. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe we let go. Maybe we fight. But we have to stop lying. She reached out and touched my hand. That touch carried more pain than words ever could. Maybe it's not over yet, she whispered. But even she didn't sound like she believed it. That night we sat on the balcony, staring at the lights of New York. The city breathed, alive and loud. We were silent. There were no more lies between us, but the warmth that once connected us was gone. And I understood. Sometimes truth doesn't set you free, it just ends the story. After that talk, silence filled the space between us, not cold, but like rehab after an accident. We were both learning how to walk again after the crash. Emma acted differently, warmer, softer. She cooked more often, suggested evening walks, tried to talk about things that once brought us close. And against all odds, I tried to meet her halfway. We agreed to start fresh. No past mistakes, no blame. We even started couples therapy, something I once mocked as nonsense for people who can't handle their own problems. But, as it turned out, sometimes nonsense saves you. The first sessions were hard. The therapist, a calm woman in her 40s, asked questions that hurt. When was the last time you truly listened to each other? What made you fall in love in the first place? We answered honestly, and it hurt more than any argument. Because truth is surgery. It cuts, but without it, the infection spreads. One evening after a session, we walked across the Brooklyn Bridge. The wind blew through Emma's hair, and she laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. I caught myself looking at her the way I used to, and for a brief moment, I thought maybe we could fix it. But New York doesn't give second chances for free. Weeks passed, and things looked normal again. Then one night she said she had to stay late at work. Deadline, report, nothing personal. I wanted to believe her, but the past clung like smoke. I started counting hours again, checking the clock, hearing the seconds steal away my pace. Around 10, she stopped replying. Then I saw her Instagram story, on a rooftop terrace with coworkers. And there he was, Nate. My stomach twisted. My heart pounded like a drum before a storm. But this time, I wasn't angry. I was just tired. When she came home, I was sitting on the couch in the dark. She took off her coat and said, "Jacob, I know how it looks, but it's just a work party." "I didn't ask," I said quietly. "I just want to know. Are you happy?" She froze, then lowered her eyes and sat beside me. "I'm trying," she whispered. "Me too. But maybe we are just trying to hold onto something that's already burned out?" Tears shimmered in the dim light. I didn't touch her this time, because for the first time, I realized maybe love isn't fighting for someone. It's knowing when to let go when there's nothing left to save. That night I went to the rooftop. New York stretched beneath me, endless, loud, indifferent. And I thought, there are millions of love stories in this city, but maybe they all end the same. One stays, one leaves. And maybe tomorrow, I'll be the one who leaves. The next morning, I packed my things. No drama, no yelling, just a suitcase. A few shirts, some books, and a framed photo I couldn't bring myself to look at. Emma was asleep when I left. For a second, I stood by the door and looked at her, peaceful, familiar, almost unreal. I wanted to say, "I'm sorry. Be happy. I still love you." But the words stuck somewhere between my throat and my heart. I just closed the door quietly. And that was it. The story that once burned like fire ended with a click of a lock. The first days were strange. I rented a small apartment in Queens, one room. An old bed, the sound of trains outside. New York kept moving, indifferent to heartbreaks. I went to work, came back, stared at empty walls. No, how was your day? No cup of coffee waiting, no laughter echoing down the hall. The silence that once felt like peace now pressed on my chest. One evening, Mary texted me. "Heard you and Emma broke up. You okay?" I stared at the screen for a while, then typed back, "Alive." She asked to meet, and I agreed. We sat in the same cafe where we first met. She talked about work, friends, movies. I listened, but inside there was nothing. When she touched my hand, I felt something, not warmth, not spark, just distance. I wasn't ready. My heart was still on that couch, with Emma whispering, "I'm trying." Meanwhile, Emma sent short messages. "Hope you're doing okay. Don't forget your jacket. I miss you." I didn't reply right away. Maybe I was afraid that one message would pull me back into the same loop. But one night, after my third whiskey, I wrote, "I miss you too." And that started everything again. We began texting, not about us, but about life, work, rain, random thoughts. She told me she quit her startup, started painting to stay sane. I told her I started running in the mornings, though I hated mornings. Between the lines, I could feel change. In her, in me. One day she wrote, "Wanna take a walk?" No drama. No explanations. Just two old friends. I hesitated, but I went. We met in the park. She looked different, calmer, more grounded. The fear in her eyes was gone. We walked side by side, silent, smiling. And you know what? It felt good. No tension, no jealousy. Just peace. As the sun set, she said, "Maybe we did the right thing breaking up." "Maybe," I said. "But it's sad we realized it only now. We didn't talk about getting back together. Maybe that's why the evening felt so honest. We didn't belong to each other anymore. But for the first time, we didn't feel broken, just human." Months passed. Winter turned into spring. And New York finally smelled of something other than cold and loss. My life slowly found rhythm again. Work. Morning runs, friends, evenings with books or movies. I no longer woke up with emptiness. Just a quiet ache that reminded me I had once loved deeply. One morning, at the cafe where I grabbed coffee after running, a girl approached me. "You're Jacob, right?" She smiled. "Yeah, do I know you?" "I'm Lily. I work in your building, different floor. We've met by the elevator a few times." She was nothing like Emma. Light, open, laughing easily, without filters or armor. We talked for half an hour, and somehow time vanished. After that, we started seeing each other more, at first by chance, then by choice. Coffee became lunch, lunch became evening walks. I was afraid to call it a relationship. I wasn't ready for that word. But being with her felt easy. Not because she filled a void, but because she didn't ask me to. And just when life began to feel steady, a familiar name lit up my phone. Emma. "Hey, can I see you?" I stared at the message for a long time. Two voices fought inside me. One said, "Don't," the other whispered, "What if?" Eventually, I agreed. We met in the same park where we'd last walked. She looked different, shorter hair, tired face, same deep eyes. "You look happy," she said. "Maybe for the first time in a long while," I replied. She smiled faintly. "I saw your photos. Are you seeing someone?" I hesitated. "There's someone, yes. I don't know where it's going." "Is she kind to you?" "She is." "Then don't lose that." Her words surprised me. "You're not angry?" "I was," she said softly. "But I realized we don't lose people because we stop loving them. We lose them because we loved them wrong." We sat quietly. There was no jealousy, no bitterness, just peace. "Before leaving," she said, "I started painting again. I made something for you." "Why?" "Because every story deserves an ending, and I want this one in the right hands." She handed me the canvas. It showed the Brooklyn Bridge at dusk, streetlights glowing. Two figures walking away from each other. She whispered, "We were a beautiful story, just not a forever one." I stood there with the painting in my hands, tears in my eyes, not from pain, but gratitude. For everything, even for the heartbreak. A few more months passed. I was living a new life, not perfect, not easy, but real. Things with Lily were natural, without tension or games of who loves who more. We were simply together, and that was enough. I started to believe I'd finally escaped the cycle of memories. But the past never knocks, it just walks in when everything seems calm. One evening, I came home from work. Lily was running late, so I decided to cook dinner. When I opened the door, there was an envelope on the floor. No name, no address. Inside was a small note. "I'm leaving the city. Just wanted to say thank you. E." No emotional lines, no drama. Just, "Thank you." But those 6 letters crushed me more than any confession ever could. I sat on the floor, staring at the paper. Strangely, it didn't hurt. It was gentle sadness. Like looking at an old photo and realizing a piece of you still lives there. When Lily came home, I was already at the table, pretending to be fine. "Something wrong?" she asked, unpacking bags. I showed her the note. She looked at me, then at the paper, and said quietly, "It's from her." "Yeah. She's leaving. How do you feel about it?" I took a long breath. Like I finally finished a book I couldn't bring myself to end. And now I don't know what to read next. Lily smiled softly. "Then maybe it's time to write a new one." She came closer, wrapped her arms around me. And for the first time I felt peace. Not passion, not escape, just peace. Later that night, after she fell asleep, I stepped out onto the balcony. The city glowed below me, and I held the note one last time. Then I tore it up and let the wind carry it away. The paper scattered into the night, and with it, everything that had kept me tied to the past. And in that moment, I realized, I no longer missed Emma. I missed who we were. And that's not the same thing. Life kept moving forward. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready to move with it. It's been a year. Exactly 365 days since the morning I closed the door behind me and left. Emma asleep. And if I once believed time heals, I now know time doesn't heal. It teaches you how to live with the scars. My life is quiet now. Ordinary, even. And for the first time, I don't run from that word. Lily and I are still together. Not without arguments, not without silent evenings. but with honesty, something I used to lack. We don't promise each other forever. We just try, every day, to be a little better than yesterday. And maybe that's what real love is, not perfection, but persistence. Sometimes I think of Emma, not as the woman I lost, but as a chapter that shaped me. She taught me that jealousy isn't love, that forgiveness isn't weakness, and that sometimes letting go is the purest form of care. We don't talk anymore. But once, I saw her name in an article. Her paintings were exhibited in a gallery in Chicago. I smiled. She found her way. I wasn't sure if I should write this post, but I guess Reddit is the one place where you can pour your heart out to strangers and know someone will understand. So here's my confession. I'm no longer looking for perfect love. I'm looking for real love. The kind where you can be yourself. Where arguments don't destroy, but teach. Where no one runs away after the first mistake. Perfect stories belong in movies. Real ones live in our flaws, in forgiveness, in failure, in second chances. And if Emma ever stumbles upon this post, I want her to know. I'm not angry. I'm grateful. Because our story, even with all its pain, made me capable of loving someone truly. This morning, I woke up next to Lily. She was sleeping, her head resting on my shoulder, sunlight spilling through the curtains. And I whispered quietly, "You know, I think I'm finally home."